Hello and welcome to UAS Magazine's panel preview podcast series. I'm your host, Dayna Bastian. The UAS Summit Expo is coming up October 4th through the 5th in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Today, I am excited to chat with Cyriel Kronenburg, Vice President of International Development and Strategic Partnerships at uAvionix, about his upcoming presentation at the summit. Welcome, Cyriel. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Dayna. Pleasure.
Hi. Yes, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you up here in Grand Forks for the UAS Summit in October. Can you share with our listeners a bit about your background and how you came into the UAS industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in aviation my whole life, professional aviation. Been a pilot, been an air traffic controller, so come very much from the operational background with crewed aircraft, and was previously involved in ADSB. I was very heavily involved in rolling out a global ADSB satellite constellation. And that led me to get in touch with uAvionix, who was making ADSB transponders, and one thing came to another, and I joined uAvionix in 2020, and have been a part of the team since then. I'm very excited about sort of the expansion. So my role spans a little bit across the company, so it's not just unmanned, but it's also general aviation and some of the defense products that we do. But grown really interested in the unmanned aspect. It's very fascinating.
Yes, it definitely is. And can you give us a brief overview of uAvionix, the types of products and services you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. The company's fairly young. We are still sort of a startup company, but have grown very rapidly. We originally came from the model aircraft world, where our owner and inventor, Paul Beard, was very heavily involved in the creation of model aircraft radios. He was the inventor of the Spectrum radio, and that became effectively the default radio for radio-controlled aircraft. The company grew from there into specifically ADSB in the general aviation markets. Back in 2020, the national mandate made it a requirement for every aircraft to have a transponder on board, and uAvionix saw a very big opportunity to sort of transition from what were traditionally very large and expensive setups that were really designed for commercial aircraft, and make those very small and affordable for general aviation pilots. And that was the start of us being a business that manufactured for certified aircraft, and we started building additional capabilities for general aviation. But I think the company always had an interest in sort of going back to the roots, and specifically unmanned aircraft, because of that heritage on radio-controlled aircraft. So we tried to do effectively the same as what we had done with the general aviation market: take existing products that have a aviation heritage, a certification heritage, and try and miniaturize them to the point where they can be carried on a small UAS, but still have that quality and design that you would find typically in a normal aviation industry. And that's where we really focus on as a company. We try and build avionics that have a very high level of reliability, and are even certifiable or certified, but for a new part of the market that typically doesn't see that type of product.
Absolutely right. And Cyriel, you are speaking on Wednesday, October 5th at the UAS Summit, and your presentation is titled The Role of a C2CSP in Larger Scale Drone Operations. Before we dive into what attendees can expect to learn from your presentation, can you share with our listeners what a C2CSP is?
Yeah, we actually had some fun discussions about that within the company, because it is a term that was phrased, I think, by RTCA. That's where it originated. It is effectively a communication service provider. So think a phone provider operates towers, cell towers, and you have a cell phone, and it's sort of a given that that cell phone connects to that cell phone tower. So the cell phone company is effectively a communication service provider. For the unmanned industry, there is nothing that is currently doing that for as a dedicated provider. And Vantas in North Dakota is the first in the country where there is actually a purpose-built communications network that is entirely intended for safe communications with between drone and the ground. And that's what a C2CSP effectively does. It is a command and control service provider. So somebody that provides the infrastructure and manages the infrastructure and allocates the frequencies to the aircraft flying in the network.
Great. Yeah. And we've been really excited we're actually located here in Grand Forks, North Dakota. So it's been such a fun experience for our company as UAS Magazine to watch the Vantis network grow. Of course, the Vantis network was also announced here at the UAS Summit a couple years back. So it's been really exciting to see how that has integrated into what it is today. So can you share a little bit with our listeners about exactly what your presentation is going to cover, maybe some things that they are going to learn by attending your session?
Yeah, I think the session is intended to dive a little bit deeper into the why of providing communications as a service, which is one of the elements of the Vantis network. I think a lot of people have grown accustomed in the world of crewed aviation that certain parts of the infrastructure are just there and the FAA provides them. Think a VHF radio. You don't go fly and bring a truck on the ground and in the hope that you can relay your radio communications from the aircraft to an air traffic control. That is just there. It's a network that exists and that is being provided to you as a service by the FAA. And that's the same with navigation and with surveillance equipment. So what Vantis is effectively trying to do is replicate that infrastructure and make that available to the uncrewed part of sort of the new entrants in North Dakota, and in the hopes that attracts not only new business, but that helps grow the industry in a commercial way. And my presentation is about the command and control aspect of that. Why is that needed? How does that work? How do you bring a drone effectively to the network and fly, which is a very different concept from just going out with your own truck with a big boom on it and a radio on it, and sort of that's how we've been doing things to date. Which will change in the Vantis environment. So that's the intent of the presentation, is to give a little bit more insight and specifically dive a little deeper into the why, because there's been a lot of history in the world with sort of C2 being the weakest component of unmanned flying, and that's one of the big drivers the FAA. The big blockers really the FAA has to allowing scaled operations for commercial use.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to listening into your presentation coming up here on October 5th at the UAS Summit. Well, Cyriel, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you on our podcast, and I really look forward to meeting you in October.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Great. Well, for those of our listeners who plan to attend the UAS Summit and Expo, you can learn more about uAvionix at their booth and by joining Cyriel for his presentation on Wednesday, October 5th. As a reminder, our early bird deadline to save on registration is on September 14th, so be sure to register soon. Thanks for listening, and until next time.